Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dylan. How are you, Dylan?
Good. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a bit of a mixed bag this week, with a win and a loss. The win coming, 95th minute or whatever it was, I guess takes on extra significance given the loss to Watford that followed. But no, I guess speaking broadly about the two games, I guess the concern would be the manner of the performances. It's, they're not encouraging too much excitement, I suppose, in the style of play at this stage of the season, which, people will say it's more about the points and the results than the performances. But I guess from your perspective, how did you find, first the Sheffield Wednesday game?
I think I didn't get to watch it because I was at the flight to Sydney. Sorry about my dog in the background.
No,
but the stats tell a very one-sided game. Like, I think all of the positive stats go towards Sheffield for that, and for us to pull away with a win on that is pretty awesome. But yeah, I don't know. But the Watford game, it didn't. Switching over there, it didn't inspire too much confidence in terms of them sort of like you don't have to be clinical at this stage of the season as long as you're motivated. And I didn't really see too much spark within them to, shit, we could be going down. We got to turn it up a notch. And so I didn't really see too much of that. But yeah, I can't comment too much on the Wednesday game. But Hughes, awesome.
Hughes. It's just one of those headers. I think you see the reverse angle that the club put up, and the way it just sort of, because it hits the side netting, like to have a header, like it's just so perfectly placed, and such a valuable goal. It was funny. I was seeing some comments before the game that as a club, we don't seem to score enough goals from set pieces, or, our centre-backs don't chip in enough goals. Like McLaughlin hasn't scored a goal for the club. Jones, I think, has 2 goals for the club. So for Hughes to pop up as he did and score the goal was fantastic. And I think Panda as well probably deserves some praise as well for the game, because even after the Hughes header, Chef Wednesday still had one more chance to score, and he got down low and did really well to keep that shot out right at the end, as he did with a number of shots in the game. And I think he's... especially from where he was probably perceived during preseason, I don't think anyone could argue that he's sort of the incumbent, or what's the term? He's destined to be player of the season, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'd agree. His performances, this whole season, I think he's probably been the most consistent player. There has been a few, parts here and there that he hasn't performed as well, but compared to all the other players, he's probably been the most consistent. And it's funny because I sort of think back to, really early in the season. I can't remember if it was a preseason game, and it definitely wasn't a preseason game, but the other goalkeeper that we had,
Rachopi. Yep.
Rachopi. Was it him who had a run of like 1 or 2 games?
Well, he had that game in the Cup against, funnily enough, Chef Wednesday, where he conceded by sort of the ball ran under his foot. It might be the game you're thinking of.
Yes. Yeah. So he, outside of that, I actually thought he would be the one for us this season. And I guess under Rosinia, we didn't get to see too much of Pandor. But yeah, Rachopi, I thought, he looked really good. He is very experienced and whatnot. So I thought, okay, finally we got a, good keeper. And then obviously that happens, and the tables turn a little bit where Pandor gets a bit more of a chance. And look, he's taken it with both hands this whole season. Well, he's taken the ball with both hands. But yeah, it's been really good to sort of see him grow and become more confident with the ball, and sort of making these plays. And yeah, like you said, the Sheffield Wednesday game and the last minute, that it's so crucial to sort of make those saves. And he made a few good saves in the Watford game, from what I can remember as well.
I think the other call out for me, not necessarily. So I'll give my votes in a second for the Wednesday game. I thought though Joseph, I wanted to give a mention to as well, because I think for him, he didn't score, but he's getting into position. Like you can see it hasn't really impacted his confidence, which is good. Like I think that was one play where I want to say it was Gelhardt played the ball back to him, and Joseph sort of puts the shoulder down, gets past his man and gets a shot in on at the keeper, and then had another shot later on. I think Kamara laid the ball off for him for a shot.
Yep.
Whilst he hasn't scored yet, he's still getting in the positions. He's still making the runs. He's still performing at a reasonable level. So it's really frustrating. I can imagine it must be so frustrating for him to not yet have that goal, because it means that as a striker, you're inevitably judged on your goals output, despite you could have a fantastic game and just not score. And everyone goes, yeah, but it's 12, 13 games now without a goal. I'm hoping, if nothing else, that we get to preseason, it's a clean slate. He gets into next season and has like a proper go at it and does get off the mark and doesn't let this sort of goalless run sort of weigh him down. Because I do think he's performing at a reasonable level. It's just, you add a goal every 2 games to that, and all of a sudden he's a really decent player for us.
I think there's, even just sort of thinking of the team more broadly as well, like I think there's a lot of players that are gonna benefit from a clean slate through the preseason, and especially with the few that are getting back from injuries. I think if we can get our top 11 gelling the way that we would like them to, it's always hard, when you get to the end of a season and we're sort of in a position where we could potentially be in a relegation battle. You always want to think like, all right, next season's going to be better. But I guess us compared to other teams maybe that I can see that are also about to go through a relegation battle, I think we've still got some solid players. And had we not conceded so many losses around the start of the season, I think we would be in a lot of a bit of a different position. So I can sort of have faith in the squad that we have going into preseason. But yeah, anyway, what's your 3 for?
So I couldn't go past Panda for the 3 votes. I thought with that game, number of good saves, really kept us in it, and then saved it for us at the end as well. Hughes for the 2 votes. He's probably the other one you'd argue could be considered man of the match with that headed goal right at the end. I struggled for the 1 vote. I went Enrique for the ball in for Hughes. I think he also had a couple of other really good chances later on as well. I might talk about him in that Watford game, which we can segue into now, where I think he's sort of starting to fall into the same category for me as someone like a Palmer, where they look really good off the bench and they're really good players, quote unquote finishers to games, but I just don't know if they do enough to convince me that they're worth a start, because it seems as if whenever they then get handed the start, they just don't offer as much in games from the start of the game. Burstow's probably another one you'd maybe put in that category, where I think off the bench he's reasonably strong. Kamara maybe as well, you'd say, where they're all players where you throw them on at maybe 60, 65 minutes and you get really good sort of cameos from them, but I haven't seen enough from them to start games. And that's what it felt like with the Watford game, because we had 4 changes where you think that should be injecting a lot of energy and freshness into the 11. And your point at the start was spot on. It just like you're watching the game, and in the last few minutes we're chasing an equalizer and we're just sort of passing it around, strolling around the pitch. It doesn't seem like there's much urgency at times.
Exactly. Like you'd expect, for them to sort of have a fire within them to sort of end the season on a high, but it's a hard one, because it's not like there might be some things going on behind the scenes, and I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom at the moment anyways, just after this this game, but I think the message that Ruben probably needs to sort of put across to the squad is like there needs to be a bit more urgency, and I'm excited to sort of hopefully see that over the next we've got 5 games.
And that's why I thought I'd bring up the table as it stands with the 5 games to go, because we are getting to that point of the season where results,
the footy math comes in.
Math. I mean, you look at the fact that Stoke, so it's where you sort of have to take a breath sometimes. And I know we were talking about the fact we wanted 4 points from the 2 games against Wednesday and Watford, so we got the 3 points, which in the scheme of things isn't a significant difference. I mean, I did say in the chat, the draw would have been great because it would have meant we kept the 3-point buffer to Cardiff. But you do look at the other results around us over the last 2 days, and literally from Preston down, no one won midweek. So, yes, the 4 teams behind us gained a point on us, but it's not like it was a whole lot worse than that. And it means, because I think Stoke play Cardiff this weekend, unless there's a huge goal swing, we can't finish the week in the bottom 3, because even if Cardiff, because what would you'd need? You'd need Cardiff and Derby to win, and then Coventry to hammer us for our goal difference to get worse than Stokes. Which I say, it could happen. It could happen. We could lose 4-0. But all things being equal, because they play each other means we can't really finish the weekend in the bottom 3. And there's a good chance that, whether they draw again, whether Derby lose. I don't actually know who Derby got this weekend. I think they've got someone reasonably tricky.
Portsmouth.
Okay.
They got Portsmouth. Okay. And then Luton after that. Actually, so they don't have too much.
Right.
Like, the next 2 games for them aren't too bad. But
I mean, which again, though, you think Derby playing Portsmouth, it means one of them is dropping points, maybe both. Yeah. Even if Derby were to beat Portsmouth, it then means that Portsmouth is still really stuck in that group with us. I mean, interestingly, I guess from our perspective, we really want Portsmouth to pull away and be safe, so that when we play them on the final day, they've got nothing to play for. But then you look, they've got 1 win in their last 5, which doesn't help things. So it's good. Look, the episode I've called it, can't pull free, or whatever it's called, can't pull clear. It does feel like we beat Sheff Wednesday. You think, one more win really starts to make a bit of a gap, and then we can't get that win. So it's going to go down to the wire. You do get to a point where you just start hoping that, Cardiff keeps losing, Luton keeps, I mean, they haven't lost in 5 games, Luton, but starting to get a couple more results going away in that sense. But I think after this Coventry game, which we can talk about now, it does really open up for us. So it is really this Coventry game's the last, I guess, quote unquote tricky fixture of the season. Against a side that's, in okay form. I think they won this morning against Portsmouth, funnily enough, but it's only their 2nd win in 5, 3 losses in there. It's one of those ones where you think it really just depends how we approach the game. And I do sort of wonder, playing a better side like a Coventry, who'll come out, they'll, play that attacking football, high tempo like they did last time we played them. Maybe means that we'll sort of raise our game, raise our levels, and go with them. And hopefully it doesn't just mean we roll over, because to your point about the attitude, I guess, against Watford, that's probably the biggest concern.
Yeah. I think, sometimes we pull an effort out in these situations where we're versing a top 10 team, and it goes our way. I mean, there's been a couple of those over the last month or 2 from memory. Can't remember who, but
so I guess Sheff United.
Sheff.
I think of Sunderland, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
Bristol City, it was a reasonable performance until the red card for Pedro. So we do seem to raise our game, especially against those top 6 sides.
Yeah. So but we've got it in us. We just, I think that it's I'm setting new challenges for Ruben every week, by the sound of it. But it's going to be a good challenge for him to sort of prove himself to the club a bit around how he can sort of turn this around, maybe not turn us around, but sort of put us in the clear, aptly named, this episode.
Is that the concern? We sort of touched on it at the start of the episode. It's this sort of descent into, and it sort of happened quite gradually, because I remember as recently as I say recently, the Stoke game was a little while ago now, where we lost, but we still hammered them in terms of shots, chances, everything else. And so you thought, well, despite the performance or despite the result, we've actually performed quite well. It now starts to feel like week on week, we're coming more and more pragmatic, where we're going, let's just go out and grab a 1-0 win.
Yeah.
And sort of, if we get that goal, we can set up shop. But if we go behind, we're almost just giving up on the not giving up on the game, but it just feels like we've lost it.
Yeah.
I
totally agree.
Yeah, it does start to feel like, you're putting so much weight or emphasis on that individual goal in games. Which, look, I mean, I guess maybe that's the way to go. If we, it means that we're either going to draw a game, or at worst case, we're losing by a single goal, so it's not hammering our goal difference. And against Coventry, maybe that's the way to go, given they're so prolific. But it does feel like at some point, because you look at the fact, I didn't comment on it when we had the table up, but Derby are really close to us on goal difference, but are ahead of us on goals scored. And it would be the irony of ironies if we were to be relegated purely because we just haven't scored enough goals.
It would be, especially with the talk around, what are we doing with our striker situation? That's been the recurring point for the last couple of seasons, bar last season. But having a permanent striker would be awesome. I kind of missed that, having Philogene and Delap just being able to whip out whatever they need to do to sort of, and it wasn't even
as well.
And Carvalho, yeah. And so it wasn't even that they were like, we were chasing. I'm sure there were some games we were chasing the game and they, produced magic. But like, I guess we were past that point of trying to hold on for dear life. We were in a position where we wanted to just play our best footy, our best, football. And I guess contrasting to this, we're not in that position where we just want to play our best. I guess we're 5 games out. We need to be playing our probably sturdiest, or maybe, like I said before, we're not at this point where we want to be playing clinical football because we're holding on now. Sorry, I was just looking at. Sorry, just before that, I was just looking at the Watford highlights. The stats, and they don't actually read that bad either. Like we probably have the best stats. We got most of the stats are better.
And so, which I guess is like, and it sort of runs counter to my point earlier about the lack of clear-cut chances, because we did actually out-create Watford in that sense, but it's
the urgency didn't feel like it.
That's right. And it feels like, I guess, a bit similar to the Wednesday game. Like, we created a few chances in the first half, Joseph getting a few shots away and things like that, and sort of using that word clinical. It just feels like when we're getting those chances, we're not putting them away. And, as much as it's been good getting Pedro back from his suspension, it doesn't feel as if he's really revitalized that forward line like he did earlier in the season. So, Gelhardt, I thought, was quite poor against Watford as well. I don't think he contributed a whole lot.
No.
My concern, I suppose, is it just feels like, Hughes scoring that goal. It feels very much like we're kind of scoring goals out of nowhere, so to speak. Like it's almost like you're hoping for a random player to pop up. It's not really, your Kamaras and your Gelhardts and your Crooks. Like, Crooks hasn't scored for a while. Pedro, not for a little while. It does make you sort of wonder where the goals are going to come from. So it's a tricky one.
It's we'll see with Coventry, and I think it's probably a better time than ever to sort of set up an ambush against the Pickers.
Which I think. I think of all the games left, funnily enough, like this one almost plays into our hands the best, because they're chasing a top 6 place. They can't sit back. They'll come out, they'll attack, which seems to play into Sayas's hands. When you, like we said earlier, like you look at the Sunderland, the Sheffield United, even the Leeds 3-3 at home, it plays into our hands a bit when teams come out like that, because we seem really well set up for those sort of counter-attacking goals. So we'll see. Like, it'll be interesting in that sense. I mean, the other talking point we didn't touch on with the Wednesday game was Egan coming in for Jones, and then Jones came back in for the Watford game. How do you see the lineup for the Coventry game? I guess, first of all, defensively, it's interesting. Like, we sort of talked in the chat as well. Like, Cody Drame has sort of, I know he had a knee injury at one point. He sort of dropped out of the picture. So you look at Coyle, arguably getting beaten for the Watford goal Not, he's had some good games lately. He's had some poorer games lately. This game is on the Monday night, so we do have the extra bit of rest for it.
Yep.
But it does feel like it's basically Egan or Jones at centre back as the only real change we look to make, and then it's the midfield three potentially shift around.
That's I don't even know where to sort of start with, compared to the Sheffield game and the Watford game, and so I guess Jones. Actually, I didn't really touch on McLaughlin. He's actually seemed quite solid over those last two games. He's probably flew under the radar there. Actually, I just saw your 3-2-1 for that game.
For the Watford game, yeah. McLaughlin, I mean, look, I thought that game was really challenging to come up with three players for. I thought McLaughlin had a few shots. He's really starting to get forward a little bit more. I said earlier, he hasn't scored a goal for the club. It would be typical if he could get one this week against Coventry.
That'd be great.
I think he's getting a few more chances. But then, Pedro and Jones I had as the other two in there because, I don't know, like it was sort of throw a blanket over a couple of players in terms of efforts and contributions. But it does. I think it talks to the fact that over these two games, it was so hard to come up with players to vote for because it does feel like whilst the effort's reasonably consistent amongst the players, it's consistently, a 6 out of 10, not a 7.5, 8 out of
10. 100%. Yeah. So lineup wise, I sort of don't know what changes I would make. I'm hoping Ruben's sort of thinking towards. So we got this Tuesday.
Yep.
And then what's the one? How many days?
Then it must be Swansea on the Saturday night.
Yep. So, that's like 4 or 5 days. 4 days. 3 days. 4 days in between. So
4 days, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what they're going to do. But do you have many ideas around, where you would be placing?
Oh, it's so hard. Like I think to my point earlier around finishers versus starters, I don't think I'd have Enrique start in the game. Let me just pull up. I'll remind myself what the actual lineup was for Watford, but I think we had Crooks came in. So I think I'd be happy starting Crooks. I think Crooks is better from the start and then Palmer from the end. I think I heard Puerta was unwell for that game. And
I think
concerningly, I think people were saying he had like appendicitis symptoms, like similar symptoms to, which I'm like, how can you have 3 ACLs and 2 appendix injury issues in the same? Like it's the luck is just out if he does actually have appendicitis. If he was fit, if he's available, which big if, I'd probably bring Puerta in for Slater and do Slater, Crooks, Alzate. I'd probably have the front three being Pedro, Joseph, Gelhardt. Or maybe I would go Gelhardt central instead of Crooks, Joseph and Kamara on the wings.
Yeah.
Back four I'm pretty happy with. So I think those are the only changes I'd make. So Lincoln, Crooks and Slater out for Joseph, Kamara and Puerta. If Puerta's not fit, then I'd keep Slater in, I reckon.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, it's going to be hard with Coventry. They're a fairly quick team, aren't they? Trying to think of. So Crooks.
I mean, the only other thinking would be if Egan comes back in for say a Jones, if Sayers thinks that we need those like more physical, bigger bodied centre backs to deal with them because they've got Hadji Wright and their other striker whose name I've forgotten now. So they've got a couple of strikers who would be problematic, but I think Jones is more mobile than Egan, so I'd actually probably prefer Jones down there.
Yeah.
Look, it's
set.
No, I'm thinking. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of
Jamie Patterson.
No.
Ellis Sims.
Sims. Ellis Sims and Wright. Yeah. Are the two I was thinking of. But look, it's the sort of game where, to be honest, I can see us losing, and I can see a lot of panic. I can see 2 losses in a row for the first time under Sayers, either on the brink of or somehow in the relegation zone, and everyone's sort of losing their minds. And I just think it would be bad, obviously, like a loss is bad, but I think the 4 games that we have remaining in the season, you also look at the teams that like Cardiff and Stoke have to play to finish off the season. I think Cardiff play teams like Burnley and Leeds and things like that, whereas we have Swansea, Preston, who are both now safe and will have their feet up, so to speak. You know, we still have to go out and do a job. We still have to get the wins, but it's a much more it's a much easier task for us. Yeah, it's more manageable for us. And if Cardiff goes out and beats Leeds and stays up, then you put your hands up and say, well, we haven't done enough ourselves. Like, you can't be blaming other teams for our misfortunes. But in all that, I think the Coventry game, it's not a free hit, but it's a game where I think we go out, we try and get a result. Results are positive. And if we lose, I'm certainly not going to be losing my head at this stage.
Yeah, neither. And did you say that would be the first 2 losses in a row?
Yeah, it'd be the first time we've lost 2 games in a row under Sayers.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize that.
So, I mean,
that's a good stat.
It's a good stat.
Imagine if we had that at the start.
Yeah. I mean, we also haven't won 2 games in a row under him either. So that'd be nice if we can do that. I don't think we won the 3 games in a row under Volta, and then haven't managed it since. So look, I think if we can get a point here, I'd be pretty happy with a point. Like a 1-1 draw, I'll take that. And even if you know, Stoke and Derby win and everyone goes, oh, we've lost ground on them because they've won and we've only drawn, I'd take the point and move on.
Yep. It's not going to be an easy game. And if we can grab a point, I'd be happy with that as well.
Yeah. And it means if Stoke do win, it means that Cardiff have lost. It means that Cardiff is still in the relegation zone, and a point for us would mean we're 3 points clear of Cardiff. So it'll be pretty valuable. So I tend to look at those games where teams below us are playing each other. Like Stoke Luton in midweek was a perfect example where they drew. They both essentially dropped 2 points by drawing. Even though we lost, yes, they both gain a point on us, but they've got 1 less game to get those points that they need. It's not the end of the world. And we go from there. But look, it'll be a really interesting weekend of games, especially playing on the Monday night. We get to see how everyone else has gone before we play. We kind of have a better sense of, like, if everyone loses, drops points, it puts a lot less pressure on the result. But we certainly will see how it all pans out. I think it's going to be getting pretty interesting from here. I think every week, every game is going to be pretty significant. Things are going to shift, things are going to swing, and you know, we'll win a game and everyone will think we're safe. Then we'll lose a game and everyone will think we're doomed, and we just got to hold on tight.
That's what makes it fun, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me for this one, Dill.
Cheers. Thank you.
No worries. And thanks everyone for listening in. We will be back next week to talk the Coventry game. Hopefully it's a win. Hopefully, you know, we start to pull away. But, you know, the benefit is the longer the relegation battle stays alive, the more interesting the podcast episodes are. I haven't yet had a season, I don't think, where we've just finished a boring sort of Preston mid-table a month out from the season finishing. I don't think I've had a season where we've kind of done a podcast episode and sat there going, we got a game this weekend. Doesn't mean anything. Just talk about it. So it's nice still having, you know, it's nice having, you know, a bit of urgency or a bit of drama to keep the podcast interesting. I don't think people would really tune in otherwise. So it's always nice from that, you know, silver lining to the relegation battle. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back next week to talk Coventry and hopefully 3 points for City. But until then, come on City.